Hi everybody, my name is Anna Stoll, and today we're going to be grooming Queenie. She is a 6-month-old Bichon, and she gets a traditional Bichon haircut. And when it comes to puppies, you know, when we're doing like traditional standard haircuts, a lot of times you're putting this haircut to the structure of the dog, but because it's a puppy, they change their structure all the time, and so you kind of have to modify your haircut every time you groom them, even if that's like every couple of weeks. Sometimes she's going to appear a little longer, sometimes she's going to be a little fuller in her chest, sometimes she's going to appear a little taller, just depending on where her growth stage is. So today, when we go to cut her hair, we're going to assess her structure for today, to see where she's at for today. So she has not had a haircut in quite a while, so she's pretty grown out, and which is a good thing because you'd rather have too much hair than not enough. But when I'm looking at her right now, she does seem pretty long. Bichons are supposed to be a little long, but they're not supposed to be, you know, overly long. Today she looks a bit longer than she should be. So we're going to really work on tightening up her rear and tightening up her chest to shorten her. And we're also going to take some off the underline to pronounce her legs more. And we're also going to be trimming up her neck and her head to give her a nice the appearance of a nice long neck. She does have a really nice neck. So that's what we're gonna be working on today. But the first thing that I like to do is start by doing the paw pads. So I have my Wahl Vativa Mini, and this clipper has a number 40 blade on it. So this is great for paw pads. As you can see, it's really small and it's quiet, and it's nice for the feet. The feet are a very sensitive area. So anytime that you can use a clipper that's small and quiet, that just gives the dog more comfort. So I'm gonna start by just going in, scooping the hair out of the paw pads. I like to make sure that the hair is really cleaned out of the paw pads. The Wahl Vativa Mini has a number 45 blade on it, so you can get a little bit closer finish on the paws, which I am a big fan of. What I like to do is grab on either side of the paw and just do a kind of a little bit deeper scoop in the middle, so then you get a really nice, clean, finished product. So next we're gonna do her Sanitary, and I like to use the Wahl Bravura when I do my clients' sanitaries. This clipper is a 5-in-1, so it has 5 different lengths on this one blade. The longest length is a number 9, and it goes to a number 10, number 15, number 30, and then the last shortest length is a number 40. When I do sanitaries on client dogs, I like to do a number 10. So we're gonna go ahead and do that. I'm gonna set it to the number 10. We're gonna go ahead and shave her Sanny. Now she gets a little bit closer Sanny than I would do on most of my client dogs. She is my dog and she's a show dog, and she is pretty used to having this done, so I can take her Sanitary a little bit closer than I would on client dogs. Okay, so then we're gonna go ahead and do her tummy area. So next step is I like to clip the nails or grind the nails. Because she's a show dog, she gets her nails done every couple of days, so they're really pretty short. So I don't really need to trim them, but I do like to file them. So this is a nail grinder made by Wahl. It's called the Wahl Flexion. So you see the diamond tip on here, and there's a little opening inside of the plastic casing that helps keep the nail where you need it to be. And there's 2 speeds. Good girl. The The diamond tip on this nail file actually will last longer than your typical like just sandpaper nail files. Good girl. Okay, so now that her paw pads, nails, and sanitary are done, we're gonna start her haircut. So I will be using the KM Inspire today. This clipper is super light and it has 2 speeds and it's really quiet, so it's really good for puppies and smaller dogs. I'm going to be using the 3/4 inch guard attachment on her body today, and I use a number 30 blade underneath the guard attachment. She has a little bit of a low tail set, so I like to leave a little bit above her tail, kind of where her tail meets her back, just to make it appear as though her tail is up a little bit higher on her body than where it actually is. Then I'm gonna run my hand and feel kind of how straight her top line is. If her hips are higher than her shoulders, we'd wanna leave a little bit more towards her shoulders. So I'm just kind of assessing how straight her top line is. So I'm just gonna clip from this top of the tail to her shoulders. So I'm just gonna run a little strip here. And then the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna take our 3/4 inch clip comb. Okay, so that's going to set our top line. Just gonna give it one more. Okay, so the next step is we're gonna run this clip comb over her rear and over her chest. So next we're just gonna connect the chest and the rear. We're just gonna kind of skim the clip comb over her rib cage and the face of her shoulder. Okay, so then we're gonna take a shorter clip comb, the 1/4 inch clip comb, which is the number 4 or the 6mm. And this clip comb we're going to take just on this little throat latch area, just to take this area a little bit tighter, really define her head from her body, and also just make it not look so heavy in the front. You can see that also helped define her chest here. Okay, so then we're gonna take the 1/2 inch clip comb, or the number 1, also known as the 13mm. We're gonna take that just on her underline. So then by taking that 1/2 inch clip comb along the underside, we'll really shorten up her underline and make her legs look longer. Okay, so we're gonna start by scissoring her back paw here. We're going to lift it up and comb everything down. I'm just going to scissor anything that sticks out beyond the paw pad. I just want everything to be flush with the paw pad. When you set the foot down, you can kind of see how it's lifted up off the table there. And then we're gonna come around to the front. We're gonna comb everything forwards. And we're gonna scissor right up to her toenails. And then we're gonna comb everything to the side here. And we're just gonna connect this line that we made, the back of the foot to the front of the foot. And then I'm going to flip my scissors around in my hand, and I'm going to follow that same angle on the inside. And then I'll come around to the front of the foot. Just gonna carry that angle all the way around. Then because she's a puppy, I'm just gonna take my thinning shear, just kind of go around the edge of the foot, just to soften up the scissor lines and kind of give her a more natural look, and a soft look. Then we can start trimming her leg. Because she's a puppy, her hair is really soft. It doesn't have like a lot of volume to it. So it won't stand up like an adult Bichon would. So we kind of have to scissor it knowing that it's going to fall right after we trim it. So we're gonna try and lift it up as much as possible. And we're just going to start on this rear angle of her hock. We're cutting the bottom a bit tighter so that we can have the top of her hock here be the longest point. This will help start our rear angulation. I use a lot of thinning shears when I'm grooming puppies. So now that we've trimmed this bottom angle, we're now going to trim from her tail down to the bend in her leg. So we're gonna trim right along the side of her tail here. We're gonna get this really tight. Our goal is to make it appear as though her tail is kind of sprouting out of the middle of her back here. We're just gonna follow this down. We're scissoring all of this really tight because we want to take off the length off of her rear end to shorten her up more. And Bichons, their breed standard, they have well let down hocks. So they, you know, you're supposed to not have them super overdone. They're a very moderate breed. So just, they're not super angled like a poodle. They're more of moderate angulation. So now that we have set that rear angle, we're just gonna kind of tip this hock area because we don't want it to be too over angled. Okay, so we're gonna keep fluffing and scissoring. Super important, especially with curly coated breeds and with puppies, because their hair has a lot of flyaways. So we're just gonna comb this hair on the inside of the leg. We want the inside of this leg to be really straight. That way when she's moving in the ring, the judges will be able to see her structure in the rear. You don't want her hair to be covering up their ability to see. Okay, so now that we have the inside, we're going to go to the outside of the leg. So we're gonna comb this hair up. We're gonna trim the outside of this leg. We want the fullness to come from the outside. Now we're gonna do the front of her leg into her tuck up. So when we set her tuck up, we want it to be about 1/3 of the dog. So if you break the dog out into thirds, you have about 1/3, 2/3, 3/3. So you want that tuck up to be that first third. So we're gonna take our scissors, make the cut of where we want that tuck up to be, and this is where we're going to make the shortest point, and then everything from this point is going to get longer. This is going to be the shortest point. Okay, so now we're going to trim the front of her stifle, And when we trim the front of her stifle, we want to match the angles that we have set in the rear. So when we're looking at the rear, the shortest point is where the bend in her leg is. We want to match that by leaving the front of her knee the longest. And then where her hock is the longest, we want the front of her hock to be the shortest, so it'll create a really nice angle. So we're gonna start by just trimming this little hock area. We're just tipping so that we don't end up cutting too much. You don't want their leg to be a straight line from their tuck up to their toe. You want there to be a nice bend in the stifle. Then we're going to follow into this tuck up area. Okay, so next we're gonna start trimming her front leg. We're gonna start by trimming her paw. So I'm going to lift up her leg, comb everything down, and now we want the back of her foot to touch the table, so we don't want to trim off everything up to the back of the paw pad. We're only going to trim it to the middle of her foot. So just a very light trim back there so that her leg will have a nice pillar look to it. And then we're going to comb everything forwards and trim the front of her foot. And I'm feeling where her nails are with the scissor, just so that I can trim right up to her nails. I'm gonna comb everything to the side, and we're gonna just lightly trim and connect the front to the back. A lot of times puppies will go through funny growing phases where sometimes their toes will turn out or their toes will turn in. So you kind of have to trim their paws based on what their toes are doing that day. She's a little toed out, so we're gonna take a little bit more off this outside than we are the inside, just to make it look like her toes are straighter. Okay, so we're gonna fluff her leg up. We don't really wanna trim anything off of the rear of her leg. We're just gonna focus on the sides and the front of her leg. We want her leg to appear as though it is set behind her chest. So you can see where her chest is. We want her leg to be like under her chest. We don't want it to be a straight line. So we're gonna trim the front of her leg back a little bit. They're not supposed to have really defined chests like a poodle, but you still want them to be able to see that they have a chest. Okay, now we're just gonna tip the back of her leg here. I don't want to take a ton off of the back of her leg. We really want to leave the front of her back leg and the back of her front leg to be full so that it reduces the space in between them, makes her appear shorter. So we're going to try to straighten her top line. So you want it to be a straight line from her hip bone up to her shoulders. Some dogs don't have a flat top line, so you have to leave hair in some areas in order to give them the illusion of a flat top line. Okay, so unlike a poodle, you don't want to give them like a spring of rib. You want them to be pretty like flat all the way across their body. You don't want them to be slab-sided. You want them to have, you know, some roundness to the bottom and to the top, but you just don't want to like see their rib cage if you look at them from the top. So we want to make sure that there's a nice smooth transition. Okay, and then we're just going to lift up her front leg and trim right in between her front legs. Okay, and now she's ready for the other side. So now that Queenie's body is done, typically I would trim the tail, but since she's a puppy and her tail is still growing in, I really don't trim her tail much. I'm still, Bichons are supposed to have like very full long tails, so I've just been letting it grow. If I do trim it, it's usually just like the very tip, like the dead ends, just to help like stimulate growth. So we're gonna leave her tail natural today. But what we're gonna start on next is her head and her neck. We're gonna go ahead and turn her and we're gonna trim her little face. So I always start out by cleaning out the eye area with the clipper. So you can see here she has like a little bit of buildup in her eye corners. So I'm gonna take my Wahl Mini, and this has the 45 blade on it. And I'm just going to lightly scoop the eye corners. Once her eye corners are clear, I'm just going to run the clipper right along the edge of her eyelid here. Just trying to kind of scoop away hair from her eye and open up her eye area. So we're gonna shave off her little eyelashes. With Bichons, they have a lot of hair around their eyes in their breed standard haircut, so by trimming just the stuff really close to the edge of her eye, it opens it up a bit more. Okay, so next we're gonna do her little lip line. So all these little hairs, you can see it's already pretty short because she gets this trimmed on a regular basis. So I'm gonna hold her mouth shut, make sure she doesn't lick the clipper. I'm just gonna run the clipper just about the width of her nose. So not a whole lot, but just a little bit there. Okay, so next thing we're gonna do is we're going to trim her visor. So we're gonna take the curved shear really close to her eye, and we're just gonna trim just to the corner of her eye. I'm not gonna trim this hair past the corner, just the hair up to the outside corner. We're gonna do the same thing on this side. Okay, then I'm going to take a thinning shear. Okay, now we want to look at this from the top so you can see that U that we've created. So we're just going to very lightly trim the middle of the U so it looks just as crisp as the outside corners. And then we're going to do this little piece from eye corner to eye corner, the rest of her visor here. So when you look at her straight on, you don't want her to look, I mean, Bichons kind of look angry. That's just kind of how they look, but you don't want it to be so heavy that she looks like, you know, that you can't see her eyes. So you want to be able to still see her eyes. And then we're going to just trim the top of her nose just lightly. Then we're going to trim her jawline. And the goal is you want her ears to blend into her head. So when you look at her straight on, you don't even see the ears. She does need a little bit more coat for that to be achievable, but we're gonna kind of shorten up her ears and bring them into the head. So we're gonna start with thinning shear. We're gonna comb everything down. We're gonna cut in a little V right where her muzzle meets her throat there. You wanna follow this line up under her ear, creating a nice separation of her jaw from the rest of her body. So I'm gonna grab the end of her ear just to get this hair as short as possible and right up to the leather. And this is important to do this now so that we can make sure that we're getting the ear as short as possible so it blends in with the head. So like if you put your hand and you can kind of perk their ears up, you can kind of see what still needs to be trimmed. So we're really not trimming anything right in here because this really helps build that full round head. So we're just really trimming everything on the outside. And then you can kind of comb this little bit forwards. You don't want them to look too much like they have a mustache. So we're just gonna trim this back just a hair. Okay, so then we just do the same thing on the other side. Just gonna cut in that jawline. We're just gonna carry this jawline right up under the ear and kind of down the neck a little bit. And then we're going to feel where the edge of her ear is and cut all of the hair off the end. And then we're gonna trim that ear right up into the rest of the head. Good girl. And then it's just kind of a game of balancing everything, making sure everything is even and balanced from side to side. And then once you feel like everything is balanced, depending on how much hair your dog has, she's still growing quite a bit of hair on the top of her head. Their muzzle should be about 1/3 to 2/3 from their muzzle to the top of their head. So they're supposed to have a pretty big, full top of their head. So the last part of her groom is we're going to scissor in her crest, very long right now. So we're gonna look at her from the side and we're going to comb it all up. So you want their crest to start about where their armpit is when they're stacked properly. And that's going to give them the appearance of a longer neck. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna lightly trim it. And then I'm gonna comb everything off to the side just to make sure that it's not gonna hang over her shoulder. I'm gonna comb everything to this side. And then I wanna look at the crust in the back of the dog just to make sure the crust should be about the width of her back. You don't want it to be, you know, kind of bulging over the sides. So if you can see like right here, it's a little heavy. You also wanna make sure that your dog is standing very straight when you're trimming this part. Okay, so now we can turn her to the side. Do our final little trims, and then she's all set. She's still, you know, has quite a bit of puppy hair, so we're still just kind of growing in areas. Okay, I think she's done.